But one night we were playing a game, and the minister and his wife were always there. We always had them at our parties. Pretty soon, the minister's wife went to, and he was playing a game with us. I don't know, we were playing Skip to Maloo or Virginia Reel or what we were playing. She ran off over to him and she said, Frank, stop this. They're dancing. And of course, dancing was a taboo with our church at that time. Later, I think the young people dance while they don't dance in the church. They do go to dances. They don't hold it quite as strict as they did then. But anyway, it was a laugh with all of us because he'd been playing those right along and he didn't see that they were dancing.
Much fun as anybody.
Yeah, but we had lots of parties like that all winter long and all summer long. In the summer we played outside, and in the winter we played in houses that were big enough. And I could even play those games in the church. But the Crawfords weren't there very long, and when Mr. Shanks came, he originated many, many kind of parties. We had backward socials and Halloween parties and part-time parties, all kinds. He kept them going all the time.
Backward parties.
When we had that backward party at Real Shanks, said he would sing a song backwards. Well, he couldn't sing a note, and so that was quite an event. So one time for him to sing, well, he stood with his back to the audience. And Neva Eustace stood up in the back room, and as he faced the window, she sang this little song, Over the Garden Wall. And then about the time she got over the garden wall, she fell off the box, and then it turned into the fun time when everybody laughed.
Okay.
Reverend Shanks was always promoting something. And one thing, we had a women's class, a young women's class, a young men's class. And so he promoted a contest between them. And the one that had the most over a period of time would be given a banquet by the others. So we were getting along pretty good. I think the women were leading to start with. And then the men, they got to work. They went out in highways and byways and brought them in. They brought in so many that I do remember how much. There were 50 of them, I think, anyway. And so they won. So the women had to give the banquet. Wolf. And in the old church, there wasn't room anyplace. Take the auditorium, they took all the pews out and set tables in, and we had one elaborate, fine banquet. Best thing we'd ever had. Yeah, it was all lots of fun. I can't think of nothing. After I got out of high school, I decided to teach, and so I went to Albion. And of course, we were supposed to study, but we really had a lot of fun. And some part of the fun was that Earl and some other friends, Clarence Owenby and who was that? Jay Kimball would come up to see us. And one night, they got there on Friday night, and we were in Literary Society. That was, and going to Albion at that time, there's so many more women than there were men. There were only a few men. So in Literary Society, here walked in Earl and Clarence and Jay, all bare and 6 feet tall. It kind of astonished the Literary Society because they weren't used to that type of men. The men, they were all tall, big men. And so the next morning at breakfast, the girls said, my goodness, is that the kind of men you raised in the West End? All surprised. But we always had a good time when they came up there.
Go ahead.
The next year after we went to school at Albion, Ruth and I had gone to school at Albion together, and we also taught at Northview together. And it was quite an experience. We Well, I had 35 pupils, 15 first graders, and it was quite a job. Ruth had a room full of two. But when we went to the schoolhouse, you never
And
saw.
all 4 grades.
I had all 4 grades, and Ruth had 4 grades. But after we were hired, after a while, we went out to the school to look things over. What a mess. All the books were just thrown into the storeroom, not placed carefully. And those are the books the children were to use. So the first thing we did was to sort books. What a mess. We sorted books all day to clean them out of the storeroom. And then also in that mess were the curtains and any other stuff that they had been using, put in any kind of a way it could be put. I don't know who put it there or how it got that way, but it was sure a mess. And so we had to clean it up, wash the windows, scrub the floors, clean up all the desks and things, wash and iron the curtains and put them up. We sorted out books and mended them and put them in condition for school. So that was quite a time getting ready. But it looked real nice when we got it ready. And also they, in the schoolhouse, they had Sunday school, and then on Friday night, they had Grange in their schoolhouse. And so nobody else cleaned the school. So for all those things, we had to prepare it.
It was the duty of the teacher.
Yeah, it was a duty of
Do
the
the
teacher.
janitor work.
Yes,
Build
we,
the fires.
we
Build the fires.
built the
keep-
fires every morning and kept the fire going through the day. And we did everything around there. So there were quite a few large boys in the country. They were 15, 14, 15, 16, I don't know just what ages. Some didn't go to school and some did. And they were in the habit of just tearing things up at the schoolhouse on Halloween. And we were determined they weren't going to do that. So we put locks on all of the screens on the windows and locked the door of the schoolhouse and went over to the cottage where we lived, which was in the yard of the school, the old two-room cottage we lived in. And we waited. And because we knew it was going to happen, and then the moon was shining, so we could see some of the things. So it wasn't long until
Hurry them up.
heard the slide bang going over, and I guess they turned over the toilets too, because that's what boys like that did those days. They turned all over everybody's toilet, because we didn't have running water in the house those days, and we got water from the cistern for our use and for the use of the schoolhouse. And we carried our own water and got water for the children to drink, all out of the cistern. So there was no conveyances around there at all. But after we heard the boys leave on their horses, they'd ride around the yard like they owned it, the whole thing. And after a while, we heard the horses leaving, and so after they left, we went out and straightened everything up. We stood up it was an awful hard job. I think it hurt our backs, but we stood up the slides and the toilets, and everything, put it in order. So the next morning when they came to school, they expected to feel very smug about what they had done, and they didn't have anything to laugh about. But Ruth had the 4 older grades, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th. And in the 8th grade, she had boys, big boys. They must have been, they were a lot larger than she was. Boys, maybe close to 6 feet tall, 5 foot 6, 7, 8, something like that. She had a lot of them. And then my grades were first, second, third, and fourth. In the first grade, I had 15. At 15, any teacher these days would say 15 was all anybody could handle. And it was all I could have really should have handled, because also 35 pupils in each room. It was a handful. We also had to watch the school playgrounds. And the first day of school, Robert Cooper, he was a 7-year-old first grader. So he was big, and he tried everything. He climbed up on, I was busy doing something else, and he climbed up on top of the swings and fell off on his face. So in he came, blood, tears, snot, and everything together. My job to clean him up, and that was a job like that I'd never had before. So, but I learned real fast how to take care of little kids in all kinds of conditions. But if we found out that the best way to take care of playground was go out and play with the kids, and that's what we did most of the time. So it saved a lot of accidents. In spite of that, one girl broke her leg on the merry-go-round. But it was quite an experience. We played baseball with the kids. We swung them, and we ran races. We did all kinds of things with the kids. And it was rather interesting. Then at night, after the kids went home, we had to sweep the schoolhouse, dust it, and get it ready for school the next day. And the next morning, we got up early to build a fire so the rooms would be warm before the children got to school. I don't know many teachers that have to do those things these days. I read about teachers out in the wilds or the sparsely populated places that teach like that, but they only have 4 or 5 pupils, sometimes only 2 or 3. And they had to also keep the place clean and keep the fires built. I taught with Ruth 2 years at Northview before we got married. In the second year, we were teaching. Earl went back to Gales, and I guess that was before Christmas. And that seemed an awful long time, but he was good and wrote about 3 letters a week, and that was the bright spot of the week, the bright things that happened, and that's when they sent the 2 set to him.
When I got back from Iowa, we went together and bought a Ford, a Model T. That was in 1924. It was a 24 model.
Before that, we'd always used the horse and buggy, and Earl had such a cute little pony, beautiful pony, called
Queen.
Queen. I always wanted to call her Star. She was a high stepper, but that buggy was a lot of that, something we'll never forget.
Yeah, she was a sorrel colored horse, and she had more stamina than any horse that I ever saw. She could stand more going, and I'll tell you, we drove her clear to Twin Falls one time and trotted all the way. Went up there to see Steve and Hazel. They lived down east of Twin Falls, little ways. And came back. But
Hazel had asked us out to dinner that day.
she wanted to find out what I was like, I think.
Then, what we used to, when we go in the horse and buggy, you know, Earl didn't always have Queen. He had Nellie before, and she was a racer too, and he was always racing somebody else in their horse and buggy. Once he got our wheels locked.
That was Ward Merrill.
Was it one there?
Yeah.
And
He had a racehorse, practically. I was trying to pass him, or he was trying to pass me, and we got our wheels locked.
But we also went together and bought a camera. Many of the pictures that are recorded in our
Now,
album we took with that camera.
we used to take a lot of them with a string so that we could do it ourselves. Put a long string on it, put the camera on something, and put a weight on top of it. Get over there and pose, and then pull the string. It worked out pretty good. The summer after the last year that Lois and Ruth taught, we decided to get married. That was in
24.
1924, yeah. Well, we were engaged in
19,
May
1920.
in 1920. We started in 1919 together. And in 1920, in May, it was on Lois's birthday. It happened to be a little bit after midnight that I proposed to her. And of course, as you know, that she agreed to be my wife.
I did. Then he gave me a ring, engagement ring in 1921. No, that was 22. 1922, he gave me the ring. And then it was the year after, it was in 1924, the last year I taught, we decided to get married that summer. So we wanted Reverend Shanks to marry us, so he was in the hills taking his,
He was at the assembly ground.
at the assembly grounds. That's where he spent his summer. They had a cabin up there. And they lived all the summer up there every year for quite a few years. And he was up there, and we wanted to marry him, so I wrote to him or something and told him that we were coming. And so we went up there
In our Model T,
in our Model T,
in our tent.
in a tent, and we had a little stove. Did we have a stove?
No, we had
just
a grate.
had a
that
grate.
Pounded into the ground, you remember?
Yes, and we cooked on top of that grate.
On that.
And
Of course, we slept on the ground.
yeah. And sometimes there was a few rocks. We finally found out that we put boughs under so it was a little bit softer. But sometimes the rocks got pretty hard that morning.
Anyway, we were married on the Inspiration Point. And let's see, there was Mr. Shanks. Of course, he was there. He was the one that married us. Mrs. Shanks, his wife, Mrs. Hyde, and Mr. Hyde. I believe were the only ones that were up there. But before we went up, why, the girls that were in camp picked a lot of wildflowers and scattered them on the trail up to the Inspiration Point.
They also made me a bouquet to carry
Yeah,
out of wildflowers.
we were married there, and then we came back down, and I forget what went on. It was in the afternoon.
We changed to our camp clothes, and
Yeah.
then we went and set up camp.
That's right. We
We
set
went
up
and
our
put up
tent.
our tent and fixed a place to have our fire to make our supper, and
Yeah.
Mrs. Shanks had told us she had cooked us a nice dinner. I can't remember much about it, but she had cooked chicken, and it was real nice. And that evening we was to cook our own meal, and so we got ready and were fixing camp that night. I can't remember what we had for supper. Do you?
No,
I don't remember anything about eating, what anything was.
we was living on love and then.
Yeah. And so after supper, we got the dishes cleaned up. Mrs. Shanks had warned us that the kids were going to shivery us.
I think we had a campfire for a while, didn't we?
Yeah, we sat by the campfire all evening for hours, and we sat there and
Thinking
sang.
maybe they would come.
We wanted them to come while we were sitting there singing, so we sang all evening, and we sang and sang by the fire, and thought that
Finally
was
get
all
one.
so romantic. Plus, we duetted a lot then, and we sang all the songs we knew twice, I expect. And finally, they didn't come, and we knew they were coming, so we thought, well, we have to get in the tent. So we just went in the tent, and
Real quiet.
real quiet. Pretty soon, here they come.
Well, first thing they did was take the rope that was holding the tent. We didn't have a ridge pole in it. We had it tied to two trees with a pole with a rope. They untied the rope and down the tent came on top of us. And I said to Lois, I said, just keep real quiet. Just keep real quiet. And we did. And
Well, we went out.
well, after a while we
Yeah.
did. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think, I don't know whether they left and came back again or not. But anyway, they came back. And in the meantime, we had a tent set up again. And then, of course,
We had a nice campfire.
yeah,
Or must have got quite a bit of wood, and we had a nice campfire. I don't know what we had around the campfire to sit on, but
well,
they all came and we all sat around the campfire when they came, and so they expected to be fed. You know, that's what you did in chivalry. You fed people. Well,
treated him.
we treated them. We didn't have treats, but we never thought about a chivalry. But Hazel had given us a box of homemade candy. So first, Earl went down to the river. He had it all ready. He had gotten a whole lot of little tiny rocks, round rocks, pretty little things, and cleaned them up good. And he put them, we took all the candy out of the box, and he put all those pretty little rocks in the box. So we passed those around, passed the candy.
Everybody would take one because they didn't want to let on that it wasn't candy. Everybody took one.
Well, these young people we didn't know very well. They weren't our friends. They were just the people around the camp. So if it'd been our friends, why we'd have heard from it good and proper, but we didn't know them. So after
Everybody got a rush, why we brought the real candy out,
passed it around.
passed it around.
So they all threw their rocks in the campfire. And well, I don't know as we did anything. I can't remember anything else that happened.
No.
But pretty soon they left, and when we went in the tent, why, it was a long time later. They let the tent down again on us.
Anyway, we had quite a time.
Yeah.
Next day we went from there to Altours Lake and set up camp over there at the head of the lake, which was a real nice place. And we went back there here a while back, and it didn't look like the same place at all.
I wonder why it changed so.
Anyway, you remember how somebody told us that if you had a spear, you could catch those redfish in the inlet of the lake. And so I don't know where I got the spear, but I got one, and we speared about 25 or 30 of them. It was about 8, 10 inches long.
I had felt real guilty about that because we didn't eat any of them. You know, I never was a fish eater, and I didn't even know how to cook a fish.
I don't know yet what we did with them.
I don't either.
But anyway, we
I
went
think
on.
we gave them away, didn't we?
Could have.
Yeah.
We went on to over the summit. After we got over there someplace,
Alturas was over the summit.
well, yeah. I mean, we left Alturas and went. Where did we go?
Well, we went to redfish for a little while, and then we went on to
Yeah, I
Silver
guess
Lake.
redfish. They told us that they'd been pinching people for spearing those redfish, but we had been told that it was all right to do it. That's why we were doing it. Anyway, we figured we got out of that pretty slick. They didn't get caught.
Then we went on to there to
At a hardware store here, and he knew some people that was running a mine, and he wanted us to go over there and meet these people. So we did.
the Hicks, who Earl knew real well. I only knew slightly, and I didn't really know him at all.
He ran a hardware store in View.
So Earl wanted me to meet him. So he said, I want you to meet my wife, Miss Brab. So everybody had a big laugh about that. Then after, we spent several days at Alturas fishing and playing around there, and then we went on to the mine, and the Pecks went too. And the people that run the mine were Woods, I believe, were the one they lived up there. They also lived in American Falls. But we stayed there a day or two and looked over the mine.
In
And
fact,
then
we went into it, and we went on a boardwalk down inside of it, and there was a light showing through the roof somewhere, and found some water, and you could hear it drip, and boy, it was spooky as the dickens. I don't know how far we went back in, but I can always remember how spooky it was.
then I think everybody left there, but we went on to Peshawar Valley.
I wanted to say why we went to Mishaps.
Okay.
Your dad, Moses' dad, had read in the Idaho Farmer a piece that a fella had put in there about the Mishaps Valley. He says, now, I hear about the Twin Falls Tract, other places around in Idaho, but he says, I had seen a piece in there about the Mishaps Valley. And he went to explaining how it was 50 miles wide and 100 miles long, and a good fertile valley with farming and all. Dad Brad was really interested. He says, when you're on that trip, why, take a trip through there. And that's why we went to Mishaps Valley.
We thought it would be romantic, even though we didn't have any money. Felt it'd been fun to go in there and bought a ranch. That ranch sounded quite a nice thing. They could raise cattle and live like a Westerner. And we looked at the ranches, but I don't think they appealed to us too much.
And sure got a letdown.
Yeah, we were kind of let down. We thought it would look real like the picture shows you see of the West and all, but it was
And the
sort
way
of,
he had it built up, it didn't hold a candle to it. The Twin Falls tract.
so we weren't so interested when we got there. So then we came on back and we
went on.
went back to Blackfoot, didn't we?
Yeah, we went on through Arco and Blackfoot
Yes.
because we knew some people in Blackfoot that I had known. Paul Bailey's folks. We used to live out west of Fuel. I used to run around with Paul Bailey quite a bit. And we visited with them a while at Blackfoot.
We came to American Falls and visited these woods where they lived.
Oh,
They
yeah.
took us swimming over in Indian Hot Springs. You remember that?
Yeah.
Then we came on home and we got back home to Eric's folks on Saturday night. All the way on that trip, we've not had any car trouble or tire trouble or anything. We got back there and next morning we got up and there was a flat tire. So we felt like we had it pretty nice.
Do you remember how long we was out on that trip?
2 weeks.
2 weeks?
We left on a Monday and got back a week from that Saturday.
Yeah.
Gone 2 weeks on that trip. That's the longest trip we ever took like that. But kept thinking of things to say right.
Okay, when we got back from our wedding trip, we moved in with my mother and the girls who were living upstairs in the house on yonder lee. She had rented the place to a another party that lived down below in the bottom part of the house. And so soon after we moved there, moved in with them, why, Lillian and Marie had a job in Hens teaching. So we moved them up there. Mother went with them to keep house caring,
George Rachel.
and George and Rachel. And they went to Hanson and lived through the school year, and we lived in the house the rest of that, no, till fall,
We lived in the house till October.
till October.
That was,
Then,
so before they left, we had to buy some furniture so we'd have something to keep
Oh,
house
yeah.
with after they left.
what did we buy? We bought a range,
And a table and chairs.
table, and chair.
And
And this range, I want to tell them about this. It was a blue range with silver trimming. It was the prettiest thing you ever saw for a cook stove.
it was a lot prettier than a Majestic, but it didn't cook as well.
No, it wouldn't hold up. It burnt the grates out and everything else. It was mostly for looks, but
was
it
so
sure
pretty.
did was
Yeah.
pretty.
It was good for riding to have a stove like that.
Yeah. So let's see what we do then.
Then after the folks left, the young people in the church came and gave us another shivaree.
Yeah.
And I can't remember much about it, but I do remember they took a bunch of thistles, I believe, and put them in our bed.
Somebody sneaked it in there.
Yeah, somebody sneaked it in there.
That wasn't easy to get rid of either.
Well, we had no time getting our bed between all those thistles.
But in the October, was it, we moved up here?
Yeah, October.
Okay, we moved up here with one A-rack load of furniture, and all our possessions were on one A-rack.
And it wasn't a very big load at that.
No. And this house was a two-roomed house with a kitchen in one end and a bedroom in the other end. And unpainted, no trees, and a little 2x4 lawn. It was out front of it.
Yes.
Yeah. And a cistern where you pump the water or crank the water with a chain pump. And we didn't have any electricity at all. We didn't have any telephone.
Yes.
Not till later. We finally got a telephone. And we didn't get electricity until, I think it was 1945. It was, anyway, we didn't have any of the, we didn't have any bathroom. We had a path that went out to the back of the house to a little building. And
We took our baths in a wash tub,
yeah, we moved the tub in close to the fire,
and I washed with a washboard.
and Mother washed with a washboard.
We heated our water in a copper boiler, and wherever happened to that copper boiler, I was
I know what became of it. Anyway, we had to carry the water in from the cistern, heat it on the stove. Then Lois did her washing on the board. Then we had to carry the water out again. And of course, we hung the clothes on the line. In the wintertime, it was pretty darn cold. First, the clothes were warm, and that was the only salvation. They were pretty hot when we take them out there, if your hands warm, to a certain degree. Made pretty solid on the line. They'd just actually freeze dry, wouldn't they?
Yeah,
a lot of times.
I did. Well, that didn't seem too hard to us
No,
because we've been used to living kind of like that. Folks never had electricity till after we were married, and so I was used to. We were used to, and Earl never had electricity where he lived, so this was not too bad. We didn't have too hard a life with it because we were used to it.
we had kerosene lights, and they were pretty good, but finally they came out with a lamp that they call the Aladdin lamp. It had a mantle on it. And when you lit it, you had to be careful. If you turned it up too fast, it would smoke up the mantle, and then you were in a mess. So you had to be real careful. But if you lit it right, and was careful and patient, that mantle would really put on a beautiful light because of white light.
But there's electricity.
Yeah, and that got kind of old, and then they came out with a gasoline lamp with mantles on it, and so we got one of those, and that was good. It was really a good light. Of course, I used a lantern now when I went out to the barn to milk. I think we milked about 6 or 8 cows, didn't we?
Yes.
And I had 3 horses to start farming with. And I remember that one night, several nights, I'd be plowing by moonlight. I don't know how those horses stood up under the work that I put them through, but it seemed like I had to do it because just a pound of one bottom plow, and Lois had set the light in the window, and it made me feel like I wasn't the only one all out there alone.
Remember that we had 25 chickens. Mama had to help me get the chickens started in the spring. I was teaching
Baby chicks.
baby chicks, and she raised the baby chicks. And so what? By the time we moved over here, there was 25 pullets left. Then we had the roosters. What did we do with the roosters? But we ate them that winter,
I
didn't we?
think so, yeah.
That was our meat, was those roosters that we had, or those chickens that we got.
It's generally about half and half roosters and pullets.
So I guess we ate those chickens that winter. And those chickens would lay, we said one day they laid 25 eggs, but
Yeah.
they laid enough eggs that we bought our groceries with it. And it was nice to have. And we had all the eggs we wanted to eat, too. And we sold milk, cream, separated the cream from the milk that Earl milked. And that cream was sold, and that paid for our gas and other extra expenditures besides what the eggs bought our groceries.
I remember a lot of times we'd buy 50 cents worth of gas. That'd last us going back and forth to town.
That was it.
Of course, gas was fairly cheap then. I think it was down as low as 17 cents.
We didn't tell why we moved here.
Oh, no.
We'd asked Dad to rent the place, and he said we could. But when it came, I think it was after we came back from our honeymoon, Dad said, I don't want to rent that place to you. I want to sell it to you. I said, well, we don't have any money. He said, well, you sell it to us $1 down. And we don't ever remember paying the $1.
We didn't have it.
So we lived here. I don't know how people could start out that way these days. They couldn't do it, but that's the way we started out.
Talk about starting on a shoestring. We didn't even have the shoestring.
But we seemed to have coal that we burned in the stove, and we kept the kitchen warm, and that's where we lived that winter. In the kitchen, the other room was used as a bedroom.
Coal? Did we have coal?
I think we did.
I remember an awful lot of burning of sagebrush.
Not that first winter. We had some coal.
When did we burn the
But
sagebrush?
that stove wasn't big enough to burn much sagebrush in. Would have been
That cook stove, you mean?
that cook stove.
Yeah.
It we'd had to, we didn't even have a heating stove that winter, did we? We just had that cook stove.
I don't remember.
As soon as before the winter was over, we bought a heating stove, and that was in
Kind of a pot belly.
yeah, but
Stove
it put
that-
out not a fire, heat. It was
It would
good.
take sagebrush too.
Yeah, but I'm sure we had coal on such year because it's all where it kept warm.
We used to go out above the canal, Island Canal, and get sagebrush. Harry McCauley and us, he'd take a wagon and I'd take a wagon. One time we went out there. Yes. The girls said they would go to town and vote. And I believe it was during November when they were voting. Anyway, they would go to town and vote. Then they'd come out and bring the dinner. So they came out and they started to get ready to pitch our dinner, you know. You forgot the steak. Didn't have any meat.
Got up there.
It was going to
We were in the States, and
cook it out there.
I was going to get it out of the freezer. Freezer? Did we have a freezer then? No, we didn't have a freezer then.
Well, I think we had a box at the ice plant.
Oh, yes, and I was going to get there. Meantime, we'd gotten the mail, and we'd quoted, and was talking, and we forgot the meat. And I think we got out there, and we'd forgotten the skillet.
Boy,
And I can't remember what we had.
Us men was madder than Dickens, and you gals, all you did was laugh.
I don't remember so being mad.
We was dirty, and
Yeah.
of course, sagebrush, whenever you worked with sagebrush, it was really a dirty.
Well, we were kind of irresponsible that day, I think. Seems though we had something else to go to. There was something we had to go to that
Yeah.
morning. And besides vote, I don't remember what it was. We'll back up a little bit from this sagebrush getting, because that was in the time when both girls were in school. So we'll back up to the time when Jean was born. In the spring after we moved here, I remember that my mom and Ruth came over to visit me one day, and I had washed windows and polished our blue stove and scrubbed the wood floor that we had then. It had been just shining, and they came and we were talking. I kept saying, Ryan, my back hurts. And pretty soon Mom said, well, let's cook those. Let's turn those back pains. It turned out to be 20 minutes apart. Then we knew that Jen might be on the way. That was another time. So later on in the evening, we went over there because
Went over to your folks.
went over to my folks. But Mom was going to take care of me when she was born and afterwards. We did that because we go to the hospital most days. So we went over there, and after a time Jean was born, toward 6 o'clock in the morning, I had kind of expected that I would have a little brown-eyed boy. And we didn't. We were very happy with our little blue-eyed girl. In those days, you stayed in bed 9 or 10 days with a baby. And so my mother kept me in bed 9 days. So I was there quite a while. And while we were there, my big dad heard it on the radio. Did we have a radio? Somebody called him and told him, I guess, that the bank had closed. And first thing Dad thought of was to tell Earl. So he called Earl. He was home, the man was still over there. And Earl, you can tell that.
Yeah, that was That was quite a shock because I think we borrowed the money from Bruce to pay for the rest of our furniture, and I had to pay the maintenance, which was $80. In those days, it was just $1 an acre. And boy, I said, whoopee. And I found out later that Pat Rutherford had been listening. We had Party Line in those days, and he'd been listening. He claimed he just happened to take the receiver down and heard me say that. But he got quite a kick out of me exclaiming about losing the money. I'll tell you, in those days, $80 was, or $100 was like,
10,000 now.
well, yeah, it was, we really had to count our pennies in those days. Every penny meant something.
I don't remember how we got it paid, but we did. We paid the maintenance and paid off the furniture. And later, the bank repaid us part of that money. They opened up enough to repay us part of it, which helped us quite a bit. I don't think we ever got it all, did we?
No, we didn't. We didn't get it all. That was Citizen State Bank that went busted.
Before Jean was born, we tried to figure out a name for her. We worked and studied hard over that. Though thinking she might be a boy, we named her James Edward. We called Jimmy Ellen. Then we struggled over the girl's name. The girl liked the name Juanita, and I liked the name Jean. I think he said it was the Indian in him that made him like the name of Juanita. But Jean, a girl I knew in school, very beautiful blonde girl and very nice girl, had the name Jean. And it was the first person I'd ever known with the name Jean. I thought it was a very beautiful name. So if she was to be a brunette, we'd call her Juanita. And if she was to be a blonde, we'd call her Jean. Well, she was born with blonde hair and blue eyes, so we called her Jean.
Remember what she weighed?
She weighed, I think it was 9 pounds and 1.5 ounces. She was a very strong, very healthy child, baby. She gave us a lot of pleasure. Earl always had fun having her do stunts. When she was quite young, he was having her do stunts when she could, before she's 3 months old, I think. But she always enjoyed it, and she was always willing to do it. She became a very active child because of it, I think.
I used to take her off the field. I mean, she used to ride the work horses, hang on to the hames, and sure did enjoy it. She stayed there for quite a long time at a time.
We had fun putting pretty little clothes on her. We'd make, and once we splurged and bought her a real fancy little dress, but most of them we sewed.
Yeah, Mother was real handy at making pretty dresses, and she sure did fix the kids up good. Pretty.
We thought, now when Jean gets to be about 2 years old, well, she'll be old enough we can take a trip. We had planned it. I don't know where we're going to go. We're going to go to California where we are, because Earl had a trip to California before. It was when Jean was about 9 months old.
I hadn't told about that yet.
No, you hadn't told about that. Well, go ahead and tell about it.
Well, let's see. They had a special on the railroad. I believe it, what was that?
$25.
$25. And my mother,
A round trip
a round trip to California.
on the train.
Yeah. I believe my mother loaned me the money.
Yeah, she wanted you to go.
Uh, and I was to go and see my mother and sister who lived in California at that time. That'd be the first time that I had seen them since I was 5 years old. So I went down there, and it was quite a trip. They entertained me very royally. Took me to Catalina Island, all around the interesting places in Los Angeles. At that time, Gladys's husband was a conductor on a streetcar, and I think my mother lived with Gladys at that time. She had been married and had got a divorce.
Did you know Dan Wood?
Yeah, he was there.
Yeah.
But later,
They divorced.
they divorced, yeah.
Yeah.
But that was quite a trip.
While he was gone, Clarence came over. Jane was 9 months old about that time, I believe. And the parents came over and milked the cows, and we had quite a time. He stayed with me that 2 weeks you were gone, weren't you?
Something like that, yeah.
I can't remember how Clarence could help me, because he was in.
Oh, yes, while I was there, went to the Rose Parade, too.
Yeah. We have pictures of that.
We have pictures of it, and it's a far cry from what they have nowadays. Man alive. It looked pretty meager compared to what they have now. But anyway, it was quite a thing for me to go down there and see all that stuff. I'd never seen anything like that before. Let's see, I was thinking of
When Jane was 22 months old, Barbara was born. But that was quite an experience, because I was having pains, and we'd call the doctor, and then Mrs. Head was going to help me, because Mom wasn't feeling very well.
that was a neighbor of your mother.
That was a neighbor of my mother's, so Lee got all ready, Mrs. Head got over here, and then the pain stuff
Over there.
over here. Over here, she was. And then we called the doctor and said we wouldn't meet him, and the pains had stopped, and he said, well, I think you better get over to your mother's. As bad as the roads are these days, I might not be able to get out there to your place, because we were on a mud road, and there was a gravel road up as far as the folks was. And he could come in his car. And Dr. McChrysty was quite a fellow. He had one peg leg. It wasn't just an artificial leg, it was a peg leg. But he went everywhere in his little old car, and to help people in the country who were sick or expecting babies. But anyway, then I went over to the folks. And then about 2 weeks ahead of time, why the pain started again. We got practically all ready again, and the pains quit. So then on the 22nd of January,
Well, you came back home.
no, didn't come back home. I stayed there.
Oh,
I stayed there. I was there more than once.
where?
Yes.
Can't remember that.
And you went back and forth and milked the cows, and you spent a lot of time over there, because it was the winter time, and you could, but you had to be back here to milk the cows twice a day.
Gathered the eggs.
And gather the eggs and take care of the chickens, all of those heavy chores. And then when Barbara was born, they had to take Benny and Ralph were living with the folks then, and they had to take them over to the Heads. Well, Barbara was born. It was a real cold night, 11 degrees below zero, the coldest that year. And they had to move the bed by the stove because it was so cold. And that's where I stayed for the next 10 days. But again, I think I was expecting a little brown-eyed boy, and I got a little brown-eyed girl who was 11 pounds, wasn't she? Yeah. No, she was 10 pounds. She was 10 pounds. And a very active little girl we got. Many people thought she was a boy because she was so energetic. And we stayed there then, I believe it was 2 weeks before I could come home after she was born. And it was quite a homecoming to be gone so long and then come back. Extra little baby.
Ready?
We had a little problem naming Barbara. I think we had a boy's name picked out for her and not a girl's name. We were so sure she's going to be a boy. She was so active all the time. She never gave me much rest all the time the last few months before she was born because she was already.
And you know, we figured she was a month old when she was born.
Yes, we did.
Because of that false alarm.
And she had long hair. It was long, reddish black hair. And her fingernails were so long, she had grown really fat in that time, put on some weight. So we figured she was a month old. So we had a boy's name picked out for her because we were just sure she was going to be a boy. Then when she was born, I wanted to call her Earlene because I thought she was going to be a lot like Earl. She was so active. But Earl says no. So he chose the name Barbara Mullis for her. And she was a very good baby at first. I never saw such a good baby at first until she got the cold or something, and I had to work with her a lot. And when she got a taste of getting around, she never was happy being quiet again, ever. She was always had to be going.
Barbara.
Barbara was always active. It was hard for her to go to bed, even. She always took long naps. When she did get to sleep, she slept a long time, but then she didn't want to go to bed at night. So we'd put her to bed. She wouldn't anymore and get in bed. She'd think she needed a drink of water. She learned to talk quite early, even though she learned to sing before she learned to talk almost. But she did talk, and first thing after we get her in bed, she decided she wanted water. So she'd start calling, "Dinner, wawa, please, mama." We'll get a little louder. She'd keep that up, and finally we'd take her a drink of water, and that would last about 5 minutes, and then she'd start to want another one. And that's the way it went until she got to sleep. And it was difficult for her to go to sleep. Then when she and Jean played real good together outside. And one day I was washing, and I didn't notice that they went down the lane toward the road out there. And they had gone out to where the cover was over the lateral. And I guess they'd gone to one side of the ladder and dropped a stick in, and then watch it come through, and Jean would pick it out. So Barbara, of course, had to do everything. She wasn't more than 18 months old then, I guess.
I think they threw it in one end, and then they'd run to the other end.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Pick it up.
Yeah. And so she fell in. And I heard Jean scream, and Jean never screamed without a real reason. When I heard Jean scream, I started running. I was washing, and I had a hat on, and I lost my hat. I ran as hard as I could go, and Jean was running back and forth. She'd start to run toward me, and she'd run back to where Barbara was, and screaming as hard as she could scream. So I got there. I went right to the ditch. I knew where she was, because from where Jean was. And I got the ditch, and I couldn't see her. And just as I looked in, she was starting to raise up out of the water. And I stepped down in and got her out. The water was pretty deep there. For an 18 months old, if I hadn't gotten her when I did, it might have been too bad. But I picked her out, and she was wet all over, and I was wet partly all over, and went in the house, and we put dry clothes on her, and wrapped a blanket around her and set her down, and we rocked a long time. Couldn't. To make us both feel better, I guess. But they never tried that again. I think I'll put a... Did you put a fence around the yard then?
Think so.
Yeah, after that, he did. But the girls always liked to sit beside me when I washed the dishes. One to get on the stool, one to get in the high chair. And I'd wash the dishes, and so we'd sing. And I knew quite a few children's songs then. And so I would sing together. And Barbara really sang before she talked very much. And we'd sing continually. Then I'd iron, of course, in those days, we ironed everything. Days I ironed, it would be all day. And they'd sit beside me almost all the time. And I'd sew on the machine, one get on either side of me. And Barbara, the inquisitive child she was, got her finger into the needle once, but it didn't do any damage much, but it hurt pretty bad at the time.
You might say when you iron, you use the irons that you heated on top of the range stove.
Yes, I heated the irons on top of the stove, and sometimes it got kind of hot. But everything had to be ironed. We couldn't wear it unless it was ironed, because it was terribly wrinkled after washing. And then later Earl got me a gasoline iron, and you couldn't iron with that gasoline iron without the windows open because it kind of stung. But in those days, though, when the girls were little iron, they were all solid metal iron, and you had to put a holder over the top to iron.
Because the handle would be hot, too.
Yeah. Then later, we got some irons that had a handle that fit over the top of the iron, and they had a wooden handle up there, and that was a lot nicer. Then the girls sang a lot, and they sang so much, so they were asked to sing at a program. The first one I believe they sang at, they got up there, and they got scared 2 or 3 times before we got there, thinking about it. Jean did, especially. So they got up to sing, and Jean froze. But Barbara was just 2 years old. Barbara started the song, and then Jean sang with her. And they did that a lot. And we went over. Then we'd kind of planned to take a trip before Barbara was born, but when she was 2 years old, almost 2, she wasn't 2 till January, and we went on Thanksgiving. We went to see Marie and Shirley at Warrenton, Oregon. That was on the beach. It was kind of along the Columbia River where the Columbia went into the ocean. And the rest of Earl's family, his mother and the other girls, no one was married but Marie and Shirley. But Nolan was engaged to Glenn at that time, and the girls were in school in Portland. But they had school in Portland or in Linville. I knew Linville. And we went down the beach one night to dig clams. So we did, and finally it got late, and we had a fire on the beach, and I don't know, I can't remember why, but Marie stood Barbara up on a log. Must have been a pretty good sized log because it was pretty little. She says, "Sing, Barbara," and Barbara says, "What shall I sing with her?" And so I would tell her, and she sang song after song there on the beach there by the campfire. Marie was so impressed that she wanted to sing at church the next day. That was Saturday night. She wanted to sing at church the next day. And so I got the girls all fixed up just as cute as I could.
Really had some cute dresses.
Yeah, well, they had
ruffles.
I don't know what they are, but they were fixed up cute to stand up and sing. And they stood up to sing and froze, both of them. I guess it was a strange audience, and they didn't know what to do. They couldn't sing at all. We just had to take them down. But that was the only time that ever happened. They always sang wherever. We had them one time, they were singing at a Christmas program, and they was going to have a little play there on the platform. They had a little table set with dishes and all that kind of thing. And so Gene and Barbara were standing in front of that. Needless to say, Barbara couldn't put the audience at all. She kept turning around, and Jean kept trying to straighten her out, and she had her arm around her, trying to hold her, looking at the audience, and the audience went into hysterics, or it was over with. I remember seeing a couple laughing and bending clear down. They were laughing so hard they couldn't sit up, hardly. But I guess they got through the song. I can't remember, but it was quite a task. Jean stayed serious, but Barbara, of course, had to see.
What was going on behind it?
She had, somebody said afterwards, that was just before Christmas, that paper, where somebody came to me and said, I hope she's getting a set of dishes for Christmas. And so, of course, she had to get them.
You didn't tell about how we graduated from the Model T to the Model A. That's where we went on a trip.
That's right. We had this Model T Ford. Well, when we were married, we went on our honeymoon. We bought it before we were married. We went on our honeymoon with it, and we used it up until Barbara was about 2, and we had curtains on that fastened down, and the Model T was noisy, and you got all the noise back in the car because you couldn't even shut the windows because it had curtains. And so when she was about 2, I don't know how we did it, but we seemed to really scrape up enough money to buy a Model A. Oh,
It was a sedan.
Yeah, it was sedan.
Glass windows,
rolled
up
windows.
and down.
Yeah. So, we thought we had something.
2-door.
Yeah. So we went to Twin one night. I don't know, to the show or what. That was we were celebrating the new car. So I suppose we went to Twin and went to the show, because that was not unusual days. And I remember coming back. I had to sit in the back seat with the children because they were sleepy. And the wonder of wonders, we could talk to each other with me sitting in the back seat. I never could have done that in a Model T. And the back seat was warm, and the children could sleep, and we didn't have to wrap them in a lot of blankets either. I thought that was wonderful.
That's what we took our trip to Portland in.
Yeah, Barbara had to stand up.
When we got going, after we got the Model A, we decided to take a trip. Of course, you always do when you get a new car. So we decided to go to Portland and over to Warrenton. And kids were excited, and of course we were too. But anyway, after we got started, we was always coming into Boise. Barbara says, are we there yet? And I said, oh my goodness, we haven't even started. Every town we'd come to, she'd think it was Portland. And she was anxious to get there, I guess. It was getting monotonous driving. And so we finally did get to Portland. And boy, I'll tell you, we had never been I'd never driven in traffic before. And it wasn't bad compared to what it is now, but it was pretty bad. I had quite a time watching stoplights and staying in the right lane. And when we got to the bridge, I had to cross the Willamette River, and I had to stop real quick. Of course, Barbara was standing up beside us in the front seat, and of course she slammed against the dashboard. And did she get a bloody nose?
Pretty well, yeah, I think so.
Something like that. Anyway,
You had them down after that.
we had quite a time keeping the kids sitting down. We said, got to sit down. And we visited a while there with Mother, and then went on to Warrington, where Bree and Shirley lived. That was when we went to the beach and dug clams, and had that. Well, that was when Barbara sang for the crowd there on the stump for I believe it was a big stump. Okay.
Jean was a lover of kittens. Always a lover of kittens. She always had a cat. She got scratched many a time for trying to tame somebody's stray cat. But one day, I knew she was going down to play with the kittens. Barbara's a baby, and so I was busy in the house. And all of a sudden, I heard the horses coming. Earl, when he put the horses in the barn,
I had to go out to the pasture and round them up. They always came on a dead run to the house, into the barn.
and I knew Jean was in the barn. It scared me to death. I started running. And by the time I got to the barn, she came out and she was talking about the horses stepping or something. She was crying and talking about the horses. Anyway, she wasn't hurt. But
We never did know how she got back through those horses and out the barn.
because the
Because
horses
she was up close to the manger.
yeah,
That's where the kittens were.
yeah. She would always go where the kittens were. Kittens were her.
Yeah, she liked cats.
She liked kittens a lot.
Okay.
One day when Barbara wasn't very old, she wasn't 18 months old yet, I don't believe. She was going faster, and I suppose she needed to go, and she fell down. Earl came along about that time, and he said, "What, did you fall down?" She said, "Yeah, I fell down and come boom." And we always remember that. It sounded so cute at that age.